Around the world and into your home, the stories that touch your life with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. This is 2020 Monday. Tonight, a chilling special 2020. Never before have you seen anything like this. On the very day the Unabomber is banished to prison forever, we take you inside his mind for an unprecedented look at a serial killer.
This was a character that didn't fit the kind of profile that the FBI is working off for the last 10, 15 years.
By all accounts, he was brilliant. His neighbors said he was gentle. So why did he begin his terrible campaign of murder?
Take us into that mind.
It would be a little bit like living inside the X-Files day in and day out, where strange things keep happening, and some of them are very frightening and bizarre.
For the first time, the psychiatrists who examined him talk to 2020. And you'll hear readings from his journals.
Blown to bits. Excellent. Humane way to eliminate somebody.
Plus, the gut-wrenching dilemma that faced his brother after he guessed the identity of the Unabomber.
If I didn't act, other people might die. If I did act, my brother might die.
Who is Ted Kaczynski? A genius whose mind was twisted by mental illness or a diabolical killer? FORREST SAWYER takes us on a fascinating trip inside the mind of a serial killer. The Unabomber. That exclusive report tonight, Monday, May 4th, 1998. After this brief message.
One of the most notorious chapters in U.S. history came to a close today when the man known as the Unabomber was formally sent to prison for the rest of his life with no chance of ever being released. For the past 12 months, ABC's Turning Point has been piecing together a unique psychological study of Ted Kaczynski. And tonight we bring you a special 2020 with surprising details about the Unabomber that you haven't heard before.
Who is Ted Kaczynski? Is he a genius whose mind was twisted by mental illness or an evil demon? Well, tonight we're very pleased to have our colleague FORREST SAWYER join us with this fascinating report. FORREST, welcome to 2020.
Thanks very much, Hugh. Barbara, with today's sentencing, the Unabomber case is now officially over, but one big question does remain. Why did Ted Kaczynski wage his war on society? To find out, we have interviewed for the first time psychiatrists who examined Kaczynski after his arrest. And we've talked exclusively to the brother who turned him in, as well as to his neighbors and friends in Montana. Together with his journals, they give us a glimpse into the mind of a deeply troubled serial killer. Lincoln, Montana. A small, single road strip of a town in the high country near the Continental Divide. Early spring, 1996. The snow that year was unusually deep. Unknown to most of Lincoln, federal agents had slipped into town on the trail of an elusive serial bomber.
For 18 years, with all the resources that the government had, he got away with murder.
Two agents, working undercover, had quietly gathered information on the mysterious hermit who lived on the outskirts of town.
Very smart guy. One of the smartest that law enforcement has ever encountered.
Then, at 5:30 on the morning of April 3rd, 24 government agents and support personnel prepared to move into position.
We looked out the window, our dining room window, and here's all these vehicles going up. You know, all these four-wheel drives. You could tell the FBI they had the four-wheel drives.
At 11 a.m., the FBI special agent in charge, Jim Freeman, told a 9-man SWAT team to move in.
As they approached the cabin, Ted opened the door, asked what they were doing. There was a scuffle right at that point, and he, in fact, was handcuffed there and was never allowed back into his cabin.
They found a man who looked nothing like the frighteningly clever killer they had been expecting.
It was just incredible to see him, the sight of this man, disheveled appearance, ragged clothes. His skin seemed to have a smoky charcoal patina to it. I mean, it was just, he was just incredibly covered with soot.
Most stunned were those who knew Ted Kaczynski the best, or who thought they did. Lincoln librarian SHERRI Wood.
He was the most non-threatening person I had ever met, and he was probably the most gentle-spoken person I had ever met.
It was devastating for us.
Kaczynski's neighbors, Dick and Eileen Lundberg.
We didn't think he could possibly be a Unabomber.
And it's still very hard to accept. Probably always will be.
Yeah.
The most awful part of it, and the most surreal, was to turn on the news and hear my brother's name.
Ted, are you the Unabomber?
For David Kaczynski, who had led the authorities to Ted, the shocking TV images were the first glimpse of his older brother in 10 years.
Did you recognize him? Do you know what I mean?
Did I see Ted? It's as if I saw a Ted whose eccentricities were exaggerated beyond measure. Someone who had gone beyond the pale, really gone over the edge.
Ted's family is convinced this is the face of a man ravaged by mental illness, which leaves a puzzle. How could a deeply disturbed recluse seem for years to be a polite and gentle neighbor in Montana, and at the same time be one of the most diabolical killers in American history?
This was a character that didn't fit the kind of profile that the FBI is working off for the last 10, 15 years.
Criminologist Michael Rustigan.
He's a missionary serial killer. You know, how many of those guys have we had? Someone who kills for this holy cause, a loner out there, up against high technology.
The answer, psychiatrists say, is that throughout his life, Kaczynski suffered from a terrible disease, paranoid schizophrenia, a kind of living nightmare.
Take us into that mind.
Well, it would be a little bit like living inside the X-Files day in and day out, where strange things keep happening, and some of them are very frightening and bizarre.
Dr. SOPHIA VINOGRADOV is one of several psychiatrists who examined Kaczynski for the defense, and who agreed to be interviewed here for the first time.
And for some people, it becomes so overwhelming and the danger becomes so omnipresent that they decide they've got to take some action about it. It's either that or sit still and wait to be found and killed.
The agents who searched Kaczynski's remote one-room cabin found a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. An assembled handmade bomb, just like the ones that had killed 3 people and injured 29 others. And thousands of pages of journals, Kaczynski's own words, read here by an actor.
Before leaving Montana, I made a bomb in a kind of box, designed to explode when the box was opened.
Words that chronicle a war against the modern world that started outside Chicago 20 years ago.
I picked the name of the electrical engineering professor out of the catalog.
In May 1978, a professor at Northwestern University received an unusual package. Campus police officer Terry Marker went to inspect it.
And when I lifted my left hand, it went boom, blew my hand back. And I said, whoa, is everybody all right? And they said, yeah. I said, wow, that's something.
Marker sustained only minor injuries, and police dismissed the first bombing as a prank. Then, a year later, a second bomb injured a graduate student.
I had hoped that the victim would be blinded or have his hands blown off or be otherwise maimed. Well, at least I put him in the hospital. Live and learn.
By 1979, Kaczynski's attention had turned from universities to airliners. One of his bombs exploded on American Airlines Flight 444, forcing an emergency landing outside Washington, D.C.
Unfortunately, plane not destroyed. Bomb too weak.
But why airliners? In Kaczynski's troubled mind, the planes that flew over his Montana cabin were more than a distraction. They were a disaster.
Noises start to become overwhelming. A door slamming, a car going by becomes extremely frightening and loud, and you're unable to filter it out. And the person is bombarded with data, and it's just, what's going on in my world?
He once said that it wasn't just the noise of the plane as much as that bothered him. It was all that it represented. This technology that was bent on annihilating everything that was precious to him.
7